Hey, I ain't started yet. I haven't started yet. No. Taking 5 minutes. Only got 30. Only got 30. Yeah, waiting for my water. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Deputy, I rise today during a troubling time for our country to offer my contribution to debate on this bill, the amendment bill, on behalf of the people of the constituency of Killarney. The first month of 2024 has been one of the most violent in Bahamian history. The most murders recorded in a month occurred in March 2022. And this month, we have had 19 murders, close to a record. And the problem with violence and killing has become so bad that our friend, the United States, had issued another crime warning. And this warning caused news around the world. The American newspapers picked it up, as did other papers around the world. The story of the crime crisis in the Bahamas was also on the evening news in the US. This has saddened and disturbed the Bahamian people. But I think our police force need to be commended in spite of the challenges for the excellent job they have been doing. A number of tour drivers are reporting that they are having difficulty getting cruise passengers to go on tours beyond downtown Nassau because of the violent crime advisories. This is affecting retailers in other parts of New Providence. Our country's reputation is being harmed. People are being killed and robbed, and the Davis administration has no solution to this problem. Bahamians are being stunned by the breakdown of law and order to begin 2024. The Bahamas had a high crime crisis for years. It is mostly seen in New Providence, and the Davis administration said on the campaign trail that they had a plan to fix the crime. The governing party said multiple times during this term that they had a plan to address crime. And now, nearly halfway into their term, things have gotten considerably worse. The killers are doing their business, undeterred by the policies of the New Day administration. They are killing people in business areas. They are killing people near schools. And they are killing people day and night. Things have gotten so bad that the Prime Minister had to address the country in a national address. He offered what he said was a plan. We should recall that he previously offered a plan. Bahamians support good faith efforts to address crime. We all want, need, and deserve safer communities. Bahamians listened to the Prime Minister and truly hoped that he was going to lead the effort at something bold and something new. There was nothing bold or innovative in his speech. Instead, He responded mostly with slogans and talking points instead of a detailed plan. Then after he announced his so-called plan, the next thing Bahamians heard was he was gone again on another world trip. In the middle of one of the worst moments of violence and killing in our history, the Prime Minister skipped town for a conference in Africa. Imagine, Mr. Deputy, imagine a war being called and the top general then goes away from the battlefield. This Prime Minister wants to send Bahamian troops to Haiti to help solve Haiti's crime and violence problems, but can't solve the crime problem here at home. Mr. Deputy, the Prime Minister has become an embarrassment to his own party. No PLP leader has been so negligent regarding his duties. The situation in New Providence is out of control, and the Bahamian people want order restored. They want a Prime Minister who will do his job and who will lead. If a ship is taking on water or sinking, that captain stays until that ship goes down. He does not leave at that time. We are witnessing one of the worst failures to lead of any Prime Minister in our Bahamas. From the massive problems at road traffic to the mess at inland revenue, to the cost of living crisis, to the health crisis, the pothole crisis, the immigration crisis, and the dramatic spike in murders, this Prime Minister is failing to care for the needs of our people. This is a Prime Minister, Mr. Deputy, who prides himself on looking after the poor, but he is hurting. He's hurting the poor. He's hurting the poor with VAT on medicines and breadbasket items. The hospital, medical personnel give excellent care. However, the hospital is short of medication, and in fact, at a time when there's inflation, the hospital is giving its patients prescription to obtain their medicine from the private sector because they have none. He's hurting the poor as a result of increased taxation on the University of Bahamas via a new Amendment Bill 2023 without increasing the budget, resulting in a decrease of money available to run UB, which may result in students whom we've made education free for may now have to pay to make up the difference that UB, the shortfall that UB will experience as a result of bad decisions. He's making it difficult for the poor by stopping the inner city economic empowerment zone, where the inner city was duty-free for expansion of their businesses, new supplies, no business license, no real property tax. This Prime Minister, this government, had terminated those facilities as of the 1st of July, 2023. No, you don't know. Exuma, you don't know. And as a result of that, members of the inner city in the business sector are laying off their staff because they've made provisions of extra money via the savings. And now they must lay off staff. They cannot expand their businesses even though they had made provisions to do so. And they cannot start new businesses because the Prime Minister has taken away the benefits that were given for the inner city, but yet, when they were opposition, they used to bombard us every day. When are you going to add Angliston? When are you going to add St. Barnabas? When are you going to add the others? But the first thing they did was take it away.
Y'all take it away. Shame. Shame.
The Bahamian people know this Prime Minister is not doing his job. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Deputy, I've spoken to members of the inner city, and I've asked them, why don't you speak up? And almost every man said, because under this government, we are afraid we would be victimized. Is that how you want your people to think today? Be frightened of the government? Mr. Deputy, Prime Minister claims to be a compassionate leader. A compassionate leader would not have left the country during this dark and difficult hour. Many Bahamians are asking, why is the Prime Minister always away? He likes to pretend he's working hard on these trips. But the people know better. They see the pictures. When he was in Egypt, we saw his pictures at the pyramids. He was having a grand old time. Mr. Deputy, I have backup documents here that I can sign that I will adopt at the end. Just the other day, we saw photos of him in Uganda feeding the chimpanzees. And while feeding the chimpanzees as a part of his sightseeing tour, he said, and I quote, "I want to commend the work done here by the Chimpanzee Trust for taking care of our closest cousins." No chimpanzees, my cousin. They're my cousin. They may be the Prime Minister's cousin, but those chimpanzees are not my cousin. He was having a good time again.
You're not a creationist?
Chimpanzees are short, I'm tall. He, as reported in the New Vision website.
Honourable Member, the chair recognizes the Honourable Member for Yamakro.
Is painting a picture as if our Prime Minister is off on a joyride. First, he used the term that he skipped town. I think that was inappropriate. The Prime Minister, when he travels, is on official business in his capacity as Prime Minister. And, you know, he took offense when the good member from Carmichael brought up the trip to Belgium and the information there. So I don't know that if we should go down that road of talking about trips if the good member don't wish for this type of thing to continue. Thank you.
Sometimes when Mr. Deputy, the only thing I would say to the member for Yamakro is that sometimes when elephants are fighting, ants should step aside. That's all I say. Many years ago, as a high school student in Africa, the Prime Minister said, many years ago, as a high school student in Africa, I studied about the great lake of Africa, Lake Victoria, and dreamed of seeing the lake. It was a great feeling, sailing on this beautiful lake and reminiscing about what I studied so many years ago, end quote. So, the Prime Minister is busy indulging a boyhood dream while we are experiencing a terrible crime crisis. He is busy sailing on a lake while people are struggling to put food on the table. Look at what he's done to the inner city. For God's sake, reenact the tax concession so that business can expand, recommence, and individuals who are being laid off can be reemployed. After all, you did not stop it for Bay Street, so why you want to stop it for the poor? Right. The Prime Minister is out of touch. His head is in the clouds. He's living in a world of fantasy. Mr. Deputy, the Prime Minister has brought forward this amendment to the Bail Act to appear as if he is doing something. This bill alone will do very little to stop the widespread violence on our streets. Judges have the ability to revoke bail, and there are a number of cases in which they have done so. It will do little to affect how the courts grant bail. In our constitutional system, the state cannot hold individuals in detention indefinitely without a fair trial within a reasonable time. When a person is charged with a crime, a charge, Mr. Deputy, is only an allegation. That person's liberty cannot be deprived indefinitely through detention just based on an allegation. In the case of some of the most serious offenses, bail is not automatically granted. However, the broader problem we face in the Bahamas is there is too much crime and violence. We also have agencies in the criminal justice system that have various deficiencies and inefficiencies in carrying out their mandates. The Bahamian state has great difficulty bringing people to trial in a reasonable time. The courts have a constitutional responsibility to protect the liberty of its citizens. If the state cannot bring an individual to trial for murder in 5 or 6 or 7 years, it is unreasonable to say that he should be remanded in prison without trial and conviction for that long. The Prime Minister has no real working plan to reduce the amount of crime and violence on our streets. The Prime Minister has no real working plan to fix the backlog in the criminal justice system to ensure matters are tried quickly. The Prime Minister has no clue as what to do. This amendment is an effort by him to try and say he's doing something, but it will have little to no effect on the core problems we face. The judiciary, Mr. Deputy, I'm certain, is listening to us, and they're listening to me, and they know that I am correct, and they are probably laughing. The crime crisis requires genuine policy, not public relations. We need the advice of real crime experts, not comic radio hosts like the PLP appointed Rodney Munker. We need short, medium, and long-term solutions to prevent crime, and when it occurs, to lessen its frequency. Rather than giving tens of millions of dollars per year to PLP contractors and consultants, such funding should be given to after-school programs for children. We could enroll thousands of our kids in productive activities after school with the same money the PLP wastes on its supporters. These children would be learning life skills and good habits rather than being unattended on the streets. We could use some of the millions of dollars the Prime Minister uses to travel first class on creating and expanding programs for at-risk youth and drug and mental health treatment initiatives at the prison. This would help reduce recidivism. We could use some of the millions the New Day administration has spent on jobs for PLPs to funding a full and complete CCT system in New Providence, Grand Bahama, and Abaco. This would help with crime prevention and provide evidence when crime occurs. There are camera networks, but a focused Prime Minister would ensure the networks are completed and fully working in major population centers to help in the crime fight. We must ask the right fundamental questions of our criminal justice system if we are to fix it. Do the police have sufficient detectives, investigators, Why don't we have a national forensic lab? Are there enough prosecutors and support staff at the Office of the Attorney General? Are police charging too many people unnecessarily and clogging up the court system? Are there enough judges and support staff for them? Does the Department of Corrections have a proper rehabilitation system to meaningfully reduce recidivism? During my tenure as Prime Minister, we reduced recidivism from 21% in 2017 to 14.9% in 2020. These are some of the questions that need to be answered for there to be proper policy created to respond to this crime crisis. I'm happy to hear the Prime Minister just yesterday stating that they need to deal with the company that is dealing with the ankle bracelet. I brought this point up 2 months ago, that criminals were taking off the ankle bracelet and leaving it in their homes while they are out doing whatever they wanted to do. I wanted to bring forth a particular example, but I couldn't because that would have interfered with investigation. But Mr. Speaker, when the ICD had contract for the bracelet, it had all the amenities, including cell phones, attached to the bracelet, and individuals were warned in an appropriate manner. But the company today, they are admitting indirectly that the company cannot manage it properly. And one needs to look how many individuals may have died or suffered some form of criminal insult during that 2 months when it was pointed out that criminals were flowing about freely, leaving their bracelet home. Mr. Deputy, we also need the right person. This is your time. We need the right person as Minister of National Security. The current minister has failed dramatically. The advice and policies of the Minister of National Security are not working. I know you're trying hard. It is time for the Minister of National Security to step down. If he does not, he should be relieved of his portfolio and placed somewhere else. It is time for the Prime Minister to appoint to that post someone who can lead an aggressive anti-crime agenda. Aggressive. You're an aggressive man. Not the aunt. The Bill Act amendment will not do much. Putting in place a more capable Minister of National Security would help. The current minister shared data with the media a few weeks ago indicating crime was down 20% last year. This came at a time.
The chair recognizes the honourable member for Fort Charlotte.
With extreme reluctance, because I didn't want to interrupt the honourable member. But this is the second time that this honourable member has referred to the honourable member of Yamacraw as an aunt. Now, the thing is this. Okay. I therefore invite you, honourable member.
Thank you, honourable member.
Man enough to see that he's bigger than an aunt. I take it back.
Honourable member, are you going to withdraw?
I withdraw. I withdraw. But, Mr. Deputy, this came at a time when the killers were leaving body after body on our streets. Assassinations were happening here, there, and everywhere, leaving Bahamians stunned. The minister has been unable to address the crisis in New Providence. The Bahamian people have no confidence in his leadership in the crime fight. We need an aggressive Minister of National Security. We also need the cabinet. Listen to me. We need the cabinet to challenge the Prime Minister to stay in the country and do his job. His running away or leaving from the pressures of his work is negligent. Mr. Deputy, there's another area that the New Day administration must address when it comes to law and order. Fixing it would do more than this Bail Amendment Act. I have asked in this place several times for the governing side to state how many convicts have been given firearm licenses. I recommend there be an amendment to the Firearms Act to stop this PLP practice of giving handgun license to criminals. The amendment would do two things. One, it would prevent the government from issuing firearms to those who have been convicted of offenses involving dangerous drugs, harm to another person, or firearms. And two, it would require the government to revoke any firearms licenses that have been issued to anyone who has been convicted of offenses involving dangerous drugs, harm to another person, or firearms. An administration, Mr. Deputy, that is serious about crime would not give licensed guns to criminals. We must address this now. The PLP has done wrong with this slack and irresponsible handgun policy. I support allowing law-abiding citizens, especially frontline business owners who are vulnerable, getting handgun license once they are trained. However, I am against the new policy of giving handgun licenses to people with criminal convictions. This is wrong and it is dangerous. I also recommend the police take down all privately owned cameras off the light poles and replace them with police-monitored cameras. Not all, but many of those cameras on light poles have been erected by drug dealers. The cameras give them advance warning of when the police are coming. So take them down and let the police put their cameras up. That way, the police will know right away who the people are who come to these drug dealers, even if the visitors are political. Mr. Deputy, let them do their job by taking these cameras down off the light poles and instead put their cameras up. Now that the Prime Minister is here, I'm asking. I know. Yeah. That was why, I only got 4 minutes. That was why I was so happy that I was able to give the book to you this morning, because I figured after I finished speaking today, you'd probably be annoyed with me and don't want to take my book. That's love, PM, that's love. But Mr. Deputy, I'm asking the Prime Minister and his team to show the people how serious they are about crime. Commit to no criminals receiving government contracts. Ask the PM.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Killarney, Rumkey, and San Salvador.
I have a question on this topic that you raised about the award of contracts to what you call criminals.
I'm asking you to admit.
No. Huh? No, I ain't talking about cameras here. That's not an issue. You said that stop awarding contracts to criminals, government. Is that what did you say that? Commit to not.
Yes.
All right. That means we should not give contracts to criminals. Is that what you're saying? Okay. Might I ask you a question? Right. My experience has been vast. That's why the initiatives started that you all sort of abused a bit by giving, these contracts. That was designed for the very purpose, for persons who were on bail, right? To be able to at least put food on their table, take care of their children until their case would have been heard. I could tell you several experiences I would have had. Meeting men who are on bail 4 and 5 years over the hill. And I'm asking them, well, what you doing? What they say to me. I say, well, brave. Some call me brave, some call me daddy. He said, look, he said, that's the street language, you see. They said, I got a job. I had a job. I had a construction job on Paradise Island. The employer, someone whispered to the employer, do you know who that is working for you? What happened? The fella, next week or so, he ain't get the job no more. And this continued to happen. They are unemployable in the mainstream employment space. So I said, well, what happened? I say, brave, if I can't get meaningful job, if I can't work, how you expect me to survive? What you think I can do to be able to put food on the table? What you think I can do to be able to pay my children's school fees or pay my light bill or pay my rent bill? What I got to do when my mom is sick and has to go to the hospital? Where I can find the money from? You need a GC to understand the answer to that? No, you don't even need BJC to answer that. So that commitment will only encourage more of the criminal activity that we're trying to avoid. The idea is to keep idle hands busy. Because as you would have known, growing up in the circumstances you suggest you grew up in, idle hands is what? Devil's workshop.
Mr. Deputy, the Prime Minister knows we're talking about apples versus grapes. Two different things altogether. Prime Minister knows that I am referring to large contracts, and I don't want to call any names because I may endanger myself and my family. But what I would say, he knows I'm talking about Abaco, he knows I'm talking about Bosine Town, he knows I'm talking about Pinewood, he knows I'm talking about individuals who was extradited from Dominican Republic, and he knows I'm talking about individuals that serve time, but I can go on and on. He knows what I'm talking about. I am not talking about the little man, all right, the individual who still has a record that should have been expunged, and as a result, he have difficulty obtaining a job. I'm not talking about that. He knows exactly what I'm talking about, but I cannot go in any more detail because my life would be in danger. Mr. Deputy, the new year began with an explosive wave of violence and crime. What was the Prime Minister's response? A non-plan filled with slogans and more of the same, after which he rushed out of town to go sightseeing Uganda. The economy is not his priority. Crime is not his priority. Health is not his priority. Meanwhile, Bahamians are getting frustrated. The New Day administration caused the highest BPL bills in history by not continuing the FNM policy. People can't get licenses, can't get license plates. There are potholes all over the streets. The Prime Minister's failure to govern is now the country's latest crisis. Thank you, Mr. Deputy.
Thank you, Honorable Member. As many, the chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Garden Hills.
Make it publicly known for member of Killarney to know that I'm acting in the capacity of